is Rick Searfoss. I'm a former NASA astronaut. I was a space shuttle commander and pilot, 3 missions total on space shuttles Columbia and Atlantis. Down here in New Zealand for this amazing expo, Armageddon, through some of my contacts that knew some of their contacts. You know how that stuff goes. They thought it would be a great idea to have a real space connection, do a panel or two and some presentations, and so we put it all together, and here we are. Brought my wife down. We're having a great time.
Cool.
Just really enjoying it.
Space is so exciting right now with everything that's happening.
We're in a renaissance, really, in aerospace. Aerospace has seen, as an industry, incredible consolidation, almost to the point where there's a couple major aerospace companies in the world. But in recent years, all of the creative activity at the small company level has just blossomed. And you see things like SpaceX with Elon Musk's company, and it helps to be backed by a lot of money. Jeff Bezos has gotten into the game with Blue Origin, hired great people that are doing fantastic technical work, and in turn partnering with the government space agencies to provide services. And SpaceX has contract for resupply to International Space Station. So it's an exciting time to be in the business, and for young people coming into it. I look at the control room video of the SpaceX youngsters doing their thing, and it reminds me, in essence, of what the 25, 26-year-olds did during the Apollo program in the mission control there. They don't have the white shirts and skinny ties on. It has changed, but it's that level of youth, excitement, exuberance, and what we're doing that it's just fantastic.
I feel like it's
it keeps the old graybeards like me energized,
And well, the idea, we've sort of reached that point where the concept of long-term space travel was mythology almost, where it's like an impossible dream, but
the realm of science fiction
films, it was really there. But I mean, that's a key part of what you were up there studying as well. It's that
building.
What are the effects?
There's myriads of different small building blocks that have to be laid in place before we really expand the species off the planet. I mean, one of the great things about science fiction is you can really extrapolate what might be possible eventually, but at the same time, what is actually doable at a given time in terms of technologies and abilities is a whole different story. So you have to build up slow and steady. You've really got to understand. Otherwise, you just send suicide missions out, and don't want to do that.
They're killing enough animals.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, because there are a couple of conflicting reports, but essentially you've had a total of 39 days in space. 39
days in space on 3 missions,
Just out of curiosity, and because I know when you come back you have all the rigorous tests on your body and stuff like that, what kind of effect does that take on your body, like short-term and long-term? Are there any residual effects from that amount of time?
Yes, definitely, and it very much tracks with how long you're up there. It's a whole different deal flying a couple weeks on the space shuttle compared to our long-duration stayers now up on International Space Station, 6 months or even a year in Scott Kelly's case. But for everyone, the second you get up there, your metabolism changes. You're just somehow responds to zero gravity, doing all kinds of things you wouldn't necessarily even think of. Immediately your body starts dumping calcium into the bloodstream. It knows, okay, for whatever reason, and we don't understand many of those processes at the cellular, at the detail level, so we're doing studies on that. But the net effect of all that is your muscles degrade, your bone density will decrease if you don't have countermeasures. Good news with International Space Station, they've developed some brilliant countermeasures with resistive exercise equipment, the protocols and so forth, and they're finding astronauts coming back after 6 months without losing the bone density. They're able to maintain it. So those are steps in the right direction. At the same time that happens, new unknowns pop up. A big issue that's happened recently is it happens to almost all the astronauts, all of them, when they go up there for the long stays. At the back of the eyeball where the optic nerve goes into it, they're seeing significant swelling and higher intraocular pressure inside the eyeball as well from the fluid shifts and what goes on. And they don't know the long-term ramifications of that for those people's health when they come back. So they absolutely have to study and understand that. I mean, think about, say, in a worst case, you send a crew off to Mars and midway through their mission, they're all going, if not totally blind, really substantial vision problems. That's not good for the mission.
Be a bit tricky.
So there's still lots and lots of unknowns. There will always be incredible unknowns about boldly going out into space.
this may be more opinion, but with a good effect. So, just out of curiosity, we have these, because of science fiction, TV and films and writing, we have this idea of what long-term space travel means with the hyperventilators and sleep and all these great things. Being in that environment, does any of that actually ring true? Like, is that the sort of thing that you guys are actually thinking about? Yeah. Yes, these things are actually possible because someone is.
Yeah, it's certainly in the very long term. I mean, in the near term, it's sorting out all these interesting and sometimes challenging physiological changes that happen to keep us alive and well in zero gravity. But they also look at, in the more midterm, going to Mars or exploration in the solar system. Artificial gravity is very easy to do by rotating a structure. At least conceptually it's easy. The engineering behind it may be more difficult. Is that needed to actually rotate a whole ship, or would it work to have a centrifuge kind of thing that may be exercised on a couple hours a day? Would that suffice? It's all very interesting, and the jury's still out on what's going to be needed in terms of supporting the humans for those kind of missions. Then when you get out to extrapolate to, interstellar flight. Yeah. I mean, even at the speed of light, the nearest star is years away. I mean, 4, 5, 6 years away to Proxima Centauri or Alpha Centauri. So then you think, okay, we really do need to put people to sleep for a long journey, because if you could get to a substantial fraction of the speed of light, say even 10%, that's moving along at a pretty good clip, much faster than anything we've ever done so far. But still, that's you're talking decades for a trip. The exciting thing about all that is the number of Earth-like outside the solar system planets that have been discovered in recent years, and with the improvements in sensing technologies and so forth, they're finding, if not every star system has one like that, they are pretty commonplace, where they're in they call it the Goldilocks zone. Yeah. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. That might be able to support life. That's just fantastic to think about that option. Now, it's going to be far beyond our lifetime before anyone even mounts a mission like that, or we're ready for it. But a few hundred years from now, why not?
Cool. Now, you started off doing essentially test pilot work, that sort of thing. I've met 3 test pilots in my life, and I've asked them all the same question. Are all of them really as crazy as you seem to be? Or is that like that sort of front you have to put up because you're flying at that rate in a machine that may or may not fall apart mid-flight?
Some of it's a little bit of its image, and certainly what Hollywood presents, all image, it's their stock and trade. In reality, anytime you're testing out something new in a very dynamic environment, it's really very conservative, the approach you take to it. It's very disciplined. You have test plans and basically committees that evaluate all the things that might go wrong as best they can and figure it out, because there is enough inherent risk in it. Let me just give you one commercial example. So I don't know if you've ever flown on a 787, the new Boeing. It's a marvelous airplane, but a big commercial airliner. I've got a buddy I used to be a test pilot and instructor with, who is a test pilot for Boeing now, and he did the braking tests on that airplane. And you think, okay, braking tests, well, yeah, you put brakes on and you go. No, there's a lot more to it with airplanes. And so in the limit, they built up very conservatively to the point where they had the airplane at its maximum gross weight. They did these tests at Edwards Air Force Base, so really long runway. They run it all the way up to takeoff speed at the maximum gross weight. Then they do a simulated abort. Well, it's not simulated, it's real, but they pull the power back, put the thrust reversers out, slam on the brakes as hard as they can, come to a stop, and they have to sit there until the brakes catch on fire, because they've absorbed so much energy. And the fire trucks are all standing by, and they put it out and everything, and they do this, and they have to pass certain certification tests so that it can go into public service. And when he was describing these tests to me, I said, oh, that's pretty cool. He goes, yeah, it was categorized as high risk. We had to do all the safety stuff, and I didn't even get any flying time out of it because it was ground tests.
Oh, right.
But those are the kinds of things that test pilots do. And there's a saying, there's no such thing as an old, bold pilot. And that's very true, but with a certain amount of experience, you can do things that look very bold or look very crazy, but you're well in control and you have a handle on it. That's very important.
Now, it's been a few years since you parted with NASA.
It has, yeah.
Yeah. What does a retired astronaut do?
Retired astronauts, I have found, can morph into several different directions. I started doing the corporate speaking in the United States over 10 years ago, and I found a really good niche there. It's been quite successful for me. I talk about leadership, teamwork, peak performance. Shameless promotion, I'll give my website. It's just ricksearfoss.com.
Okay.
So for audiences that are looking for that kind of thing, I present that. I've done a few of these kind of shows in the past, just something that connects. I do some technical space consulting. Again, I don't really market myself as that, but when an interesting project comes by, I do it. I've consulted on a couple Hollywood movies as aviation space expert on Green Lantern, if you saw that, and Oblivion, Tom Cruise, Oblivion, sci-fi. I was the space consultant on that. Got to work directly with Mr. Cruise. Fantastic professional in terms of, I love watching people who are world class in their field, and his level of professionalism, attention to detail, and working his craft as he was preparing to play those scenes that I consulted on was just magnificent. And I still am an active test pilot. I have contracts with a couple companies in Mojave, California, the Civilian Flight Test Center. Flying, turned 60 this year, and I'm still flying ejection seat aircraft. I'm going, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I go fly one of those missions, go spin jets and do wild and crazy stuff, and come home and play with my grandkids that live 20 minutes away. So to me, it's the best of both worlds. I'm very fortunate to be staying healthy and still flying, doing a lot of different things.